According to multiple media reports, BluSmart's CEO has stepped down, along with their chief business officer, their chief technology officer, and their vice president of experience. While the company hasn't officially confirmed these exits, the silence is only adding to the speculation here, and that's just one part of the story because last week rumors began circulating that BluSmart might be acquired by Uber. And then a week before that, there was buzz that BluSmart's charging infrastructure was being sold off to ChargeZone. And one of BluSmart's founders has actually denied the Uber sale, but the fact that these rumors keep coming back suggests that there's growing uncertainty about the company. Welcome to our weekly Indian startup news show here at Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb Friesen, your host, and today is a very special episode of the show because I'm pretty sure by the time this video goes live, we will have either hit 1 million subscribers or we'll be very close to hitting that number. But you all came here for the news, so we'll get through that first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the journey so far at the end for those of you who want to stick around. So let's dive into what's really going on here behind the scenes at BluSmart. A lot of BluSmart's current troubles trace back to its longtime business partner, Gensol Engineering. And this isn't just a typical partnership. BluSmart and Gensol were actually founded by the same people, Anmol and Puneet Jaggi. For years, Gensol supplied most of BluSmart's electric vehicle fleet, while BluSmart was Gensol's largest customer. But that arrangement started to unravel earlier this year. In January, Gensol had sold nearly 3,000 electric vehicles previously operated by BluSmart to Refex Green Mobility. The move was meant to reduce Gensol's debt by 315 crore rupees, but soon after, credit agencies flagged delayed repayments and even accused Gensol of submitting inaccurate data. Around the same time, BluSmart also missed a 30 crore rupee debt repayment of its own, though they did manage to repay it later on. And then earlier in March of 2025, Gensol's credit rating was downgraded to default by both ICRA and CARE, triggering a major drop in its share price. And because of the deep links between these two companies, BluSmart got caught up in the fallout. And since then, Gensol's share price has dropped by more than 70% in just 2 months. And because of the same promoter group controlling both companies, investor confidence has taken a hit on both sides. Now, BluSmart has responded by saying it's diversifying its leasing partners. The company claims that most of their vehicles that were added in 2024 came from new partners like Orix, Kinto, and Mahindra. But here's the reality. Those 3,000 vehicles recently transferred by Gensol still account for over 1/3 of BluSmart's current fleet of 8,500 EVs. So Gensol's influence hasn't entirely gone away. And then in the middle of all of this happening, BluSmart also announced their plans to shut down their Dubai operations in April, saying that it will now focus exclusively on the Indian market, which feels like a move to consolidate operations during a challenging period. At the same time, the company is trying to raise $50 million in new funding, but with over $80 million in debt and its founders facing regulatory scrutiny, that raise may be more about staying afloat than expanding. And with competitors like Uber and Green gaining ground fast, BluSmart's early lead in the EV ride-hailing space could soon disappear. So what do you think? Can BluSmart pull through this financial storm, or are they already on the brink? Is it already too late? I'd love to know your thoughts. All right, next up in the news, Paytm has just cut ties with Juspay. Starting April 1st, Paytm will now route payments only through its own platform, Paytm Payment Services, and they're urging their merchants to make the switch quickly. But Paytm isn't the only one to cut ties with Juspay. PhonePe, Razorpay, and Cashfree have already done it. But the big question is, why are India's top payment players suddenly distancing themselves from Juspay? Well, to understand why this is happening, let's break down what Juspay does and what changed. So Juspay started as a payment orchestrator. It worked like a traffic controller for online payments, helping merchants connect to multiple payment gateways and automatically route payments based on speed, cost, or reliability. And importantly, it didn't collect or settle money itself. It was just the middleman. But that changed when Juspay got a payment aggregator license from the Reserve Bank of India last year. That license allowed Juspay to launch HyperPG, a service that lets Juspay collect payments directly, putting it in direct competition with payment gateways like Razorpay and Paytm. And so that's when things started to go south. Gateways that once used Juspay now see it as a competitor. And some have also raised concerns about Juspay's routing system, saying that it could secretly prioritize its own service. Juspay says that those fears are unfounded, though. According to the company, merchants set their own routing rules in 95% of cases, and it has now open sourced its routing engine to prove transparency. But still, payment gateways are moving away from orchestration platforms like Juspay and opting for direct integration with merchants. This gives them more control over data, faster rollout of new features, and full ownership of the payment flow. And that's why Razorpay launched Optimizer, Cash-Free built Flowwise, and Paytm is now fully in-house. But despite all of this mounting pressure, Juspay continues to process over 175 million transactions a day and says that it remains focused on being a technology partner, not a competitor. All right, next up, here at Backstage with Millionaires, we've been dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs over the last 6 years. And during this journey, we've observed a significant gap between service providers and service seekers in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And a major reason behind this gap is the lack of trust in service providers. One of the first challenges entrepreneurs face is finding reliable partners to register their companies or manage their legal and financial needs. And so to address this gap and add value to the ecosystem, we are excited to announce the launch of a platform designed to help entrepreneurs register their businesses and handle financial and legal compliances effortlessly. We've assembled a team of highly qualified and experienced CAs and lawyers who are equipped to assist your business from its very inception. Whether you're looking for company registration, regulatory compliances, GST registration and filing, founders or shareholders agreements, legal documentation for fundraising, all of that stuff, we've got you covered. If you're an entrepreneur in need of any of these services, simply fill out the Google form linked down below with a couple of details about your requirements, and our team will get in touch with you at the earliest. So let's work together to make your entrepreneurial journey smoother and more successful. All right, next up in the news, Andhra Pradesh has launched a new Innovation and Startup Policy 4.0 with a bold goal to support 20,000 new startups and 10 unicorns in the next 5 years. The state currently has about 6,600 startups, but most of India's startup activity is still centered in cities like Bengaluru and Mumbai. So Andhra Pradesh wants to change that by building stronger infrastructure and support systems for entrepreneurs. And this is why their latest policy includes plans to set up 10 new centers of excellence across key sectors like AI, blockchain, electric vehicles, and cybersecurity, adding to the 6 centers that are already operating in biotech, IoT, and maritime tech. The state also plans to generate 1 lakh jobs through its startup ecosystem, and to back this, departments like IT, agriculture, and transport will each allocate 10 to 20 crore rupees annually to work with startups. The state is also attracting high-tech investment. In January, it signed a deal with Indichip Semiconductors and Japan's Yatao Microtechnology to build a chip fabrication plant in Kurnool. And a partnership with Google is also in place to promote AI adoption and support startups through accelerator programs. So do you think that this is going to be enough for Andhra Pradesh to become a major startup hub over the next 5 years? Leave a comment down below. Okay, now moving on to some quick updates here. First of all, Indian social e-commerce unicorn Meesho is planning for their $1 billion IPO at a $10 billion valuation. They've already enlisted Morgan Stanley, Citi, and Kotak as advisors, and their IPO is expected to go live by Diwali of this year. Now, continuing to talk about IPOs, Zypp Electric has laid off 10% of its workforce as a part of a push towards profitability ahead of its potential IPO. Now, speaking of profitability, BharatPe first turned operationally profitable in October of last year, and now the company has achieved operational profitability for the first 9 months of FY25. Also, with platforms like Grow and Zerodha seeing a dip in their active users, MobiKwik has decided to step into the stockbroking and derivatives trading space, and they're doing this through a new subsidiary called MobiKwik Securities Broking Private Limited, and they plan to invest 2 crore rupees to get the venture off the ground. All right, now let's move to the funding news segment for today's video. This week, Indian startups raised a total of just $50 million, which is a lot lower than last week's $175 million. It's also way below the trend line, but let's take a look at some of the companies that raised funds this week. The first one I want to talk about here is New Delhi-based DCDC Kidney Care, which is a healthcare company providing high-quality dialysis services to patients with kidney diseases, and they've raised $17.4 million. Following that, we have agri-tech startup Grow Indigo, which provides biological products that improve soil health and increase farm yields, ultimately boosting farmers' incomes, and they've raised $10 million. After that, we have Mumbai-based jewelry brand Firefly Diamonds, which specializes in lab-grown diamonds, offering a sustainable and affordable alternative to traditional mined diamonds, and they've raised $3 million in their seed round. Next, we have Bengaluru-based Navdrishti Aerospace, a company that is building small, powerful engines that can be used in drones, aircraft, and even to generate electricity. These engines are called micro gas turbines, and they work by burning fuel to create energy, just like a jet engine, but much smaller. and they've raised $3 million. And then finally, we have Gurugram-based CareFi, a fintech startup that provides smart financing solutions tailored for the healthcare sector, including hospitals, doctors, and allied suppliers. And they've raised 7.5 crore rupees, that's about $870,000 in debt. All right, that is all the Indian startup news that I have for you all this week. So now let's talk a little bit about this number, 1 million subscribers. It feels surreal because we've been talking about this number since day one. I remember asking Prithvi how long he thought it would take us to reach 1 million subscribers, and he guessed 6 months. That was all the way back in December of 2018. And it turns out that it was actually 6 years and 3 months. And I just want to tell you a little quick story about kind of how we got here, just some random thoughts that I had while I was contemplating the reality of this situation, that we finally hit this milestone, or potentially when this video goes live, maybe like a couple of hours, hopefully not a couple of days, but maybe a couple of days before we hit 1 million subscribers. So back in 2013, I started my first YouTube channel, and this was my personal channel. It failed, it just didn't really work out. Who knows, maybe someday I'll post more content there. I'm not sure. Nobody watched those videos though, and they weren't very good, so I'm not surprised. But then in 2018, Prithvi and I, and you probably don't see Prithvi very often, many of you might not even know who he is, but he and I actually started Backstage with Millionaires together, and then Pankaj, who you probably have seen, joined us a little bit later as our third co-founder. But we actually started another channel first. It was called India Once Again. So for India Once Again, we were doing street interviews, and that one didn't really take off either. It might have if we had given it a fair shot, but it was really hard too, shooting all those videos out in the heat, and you're approaching these random people you've never met. It feels a little bit dangerous, a little awkward. A lot of people don't want to give interviews, so you might end up with a 10-minute video, but it took you like the entire day to film. And so then and we actually published some of those videos in 2019. So we shot them in 2018, published them in 2019. But by that point, we had already started Backstage with Millionaires. And when we were starting Backstage, I just felt like that was something that I could actually see myself doing for a while. I found that I liked talking to successful people. And I'd always liked going places that I wasn't supposed to be. And so that felt like this was an extension of that. I liked having an excuse to ask these smart people questions about their life, how they became successful. And me as a nobody, someone who had no business sitting down with millionaires, I was actually getting a chance to go backstage and talk to some of them. And some of these entrepreneurs were really busy. They wouldn't even meet me at the door. It'd be their personal assistant. And so they'd bring me up to the boardroom, and then the founder would walk in, 15 minutes late, checking his watch and saying he only had 30 minutes for this little video shoot. And there's people like that who are out there, but then there was other people who are like super down to earth. And you wouldn't even know that they're these really wealthy people, especially in Bengaluru, where everyone wears chappals and shorts and t-shirts, and they just look like completely normal people, but then their net worth is like astronomical. And they would hang out. We'd go grab lunch, we'd go grab a drink, and I just loved meeting those people. And I'm still in touch with many of those people today, even though we've stopped doing podcasts, and a lot of those conversations from back in 2019, the ecosystem was very different. I lived in a different place at that time, but it was magical. And I think that feeling was something that really helped me. It helped me to get through some of the hard times of Backstage with Millionaires when we weren't growing fast. Because I think back to those experiences and I'd be like, that was meaningful for me. And so yeah, third time was a charm for us, as they say. We didn't quit. We just stubbornly kept at it. We kept making videos. And so there's no secret to it. I think we might have had a couple of lucky breaks, but we did everything we could to increase the surface area of that luck. There were those moments where things kind of went our way, but I think we really worked hard to capitalize on those opportunities when they came. We were agile, we were smart. So there was never really any pure luck. Very little luck involved in this journey, which I think is why it took us 6 years, while some other creators, suddenly they just go viral out of nowhere, and you're like, I'm seeing you everywhere, and I don't even know where you came from. I didn't know who you were a week ago, and now I'm seeing you across my feed, right? We didn't really have that story. It's just been this really slow journey. And I feel proud of that. I feel like we've earned what we've accomplished. We've truly earned it through just like hard work. We got to where we are today by just showing up every day, even when we weren't sure if anybody was watching our videos. There was many days where we would just not get a lot of views, like maybe not even 100 views on some videos. And then some of them were like low hundreds. We didn't take any shortcuts. We didn't go viral for the wrong reasons either. And so when I tell people that I run a YouTube channel, I'm always quick to follow that up by saying I make content about businesses, and the goal of the channel is to empower young people to start companies, to get into business, to become entrepreneurs, and leave that sort of traditional 9 to 5 that maybe their parents wanted them to get into, but they're thinking, no, I want to try something different with my life. And I still feel like there's so many young people in this country, I meet them all the time, that either are not familiar with the idea of entrepreneurship, or there's this stigma in their community and their culture around entrepreneurship where it's seen as sort of like a lowly thing to do, like, oh yeah, starting a business like a kirana or something, or like a small business where you're not going to make much money because you couldn't get some, high paying engineer job or becoming a doctor or getting a government job. That's the way that in many communities, that's the way that it's seen. And obviously there's a lot of people who just can't get into business, right? For whatever reason, maybe they have family responsibilities, maybe there's financial constraints. Obviously, not everybody needs to start up, but our goal has always been to convince the people who are in that position where they could, and the only thing holding them back is their own self-restraint, their own fear, where we try to encourage them to say, look, like just try it, just see, just get into it. Once you're in it, you can't research all for the rest of your life, right? You can't just watch YouTube videos for the rest of your life. You actually have to make that leap. And so I hope that we've done that for at least a few people, maybe at least a few hundred people. I don't know how many people are actually out there who have made the leap because of us, but I like to think that there's at least a few. And by the way, I'd love to hear from you too if you did start your company after discovering Backstage with Millionaires. Or if you've learned some things from us that helped you along the way in your business journey, just leave a comment down below. We really would love to hear from you. It means a lot to just go through the comments and see people's experiences and see their thoughts. But even if you don't leave a comment, I know that there's a lot of you out there who watch these videos, and like me on YouTube, you don't comment. I'm also like a lurker. I don't comment much on videos. That's perfectly fine. But I just wanted to say thanks to you, to everyone that's someone's hammering something, yeah, I just wanted to say a big thanks to everybody that's watched one of our videos, or liked or commented on one of our videos, or subscribed to our channels. And I honestly hope I bump into you someday. I love randomly meeting people out here in India that know me from Backstage with Millionaires. It's also super weird, but in the best possible way. And I love it. I also want to thank my co-founders, Prithvi and Pankaj. You've often worked harder and shown more dedication towards Backstage with Millionaires than me. So sticking through the highs and the lows of building this thing with me. I know I'm not always the easiest person to work with. I want to thank all the incredible team members that have joined us along the way. You know who you are. There's a lot of people, so I won't name everybody. But then I also want to thank my wife, who has believed in me in this journey, even when it wasn't clear where it was going to end up. I think probably many of the first 100 subscribers to our channel were literally just her family and friends. And so she was just blasting people on WhatsApp, going and telling them to follow or subscribe to our channel, even though we had posted like one video. And yeah, she's never told me to go and get a real job. She's never told me to quit. And I know she's really proud of me, and that's all I need, right? That's like, what else is there? So thanks to everybody. And I'll just wrap this up pretty soon, but I just want to close on this metaphor that I often use. I look through life through this lens. I love to hitchhike, and some of you might not know that, but it's one of those things that just is really scary and intense, but also teaches you a lot in a very short span of time. And so what happens is you stick your thumb out and you start this journey, kind of like the way that I started Backstage with Millionaires with Prithvi 6 years and 3 months ago, where I had no idea where I was going to end up, right? And you never do when you're hitchhiking. You kind of just stick your thumb out and you hope that someone's going to pick you up and take you where you want to go, or take you to some place that's cool. And then you end up spending a bunch of time with this person, and you learn so much. And through that conversation that you have with them, where they usually talk about some very deep things that they've been through as a person, some of the experiences that they've had, you're able to absorb that knowledge and actually grow a lot on your own, right? You're able to walk out of that vehicle at the end of that drive and feel like you've evolved, like you've grown up somehow, and you actually have way more learning and experience after those 6, 7, 8 hours than you have from many other 6, 7, 8 hour periods of your life. If you think back to how many, half days you've had where you just really didn't do anything at all, and then you think about those hitchhiking experiences, you learn so much. And I feel like Backstage has been like one long crazy hitchhiking journey where I just stuck out my thumb, got in the car, happened to be with Prithvi, but then the car started getting full of other people too, right? All of these subscribers and all these entrepreneurs that I've hung out with. And it's just been this wild journey where when I started, I was really just, I had no clue what I was doing. And I remember sitting down with Niraj, the founder of Hiver, and I didn't even know what a Series B was. And so he was telling me and kind of telling the audience about how they raised their Series B. And I remember asking him, like, could you just explain what a Series B is for the audience, for people who don't know? And he kind of looked at me and he's like, okay, like, sure. And I'm sure he was thinking, like, wow, you're running a business channel. Like, of course your audience knows what a Series B is. But I was asking because I didn't know what a Series B was. I was truly faking it until I make it, right? And now, all these years later, I'm just feel like I'm stepping out of I'm not really stepping out of the car, but I'm hitting this milestone of 1 million subscribers, which feels at least like a break, stepping out of the car to stretch your legs or something. And it just feels like I've learned so much and I've grown so much and I've grown into my own expectations for myself. And I've sort of grown to overcome the obstacles that have come my way as I've built this YouTube channel / Instagram account / media company. And yeah, I guess I'm sort of proud of who I've become. So this is about hitting 1 million subscribers, but I think as cliche as it is, it's also about the journey along the way, right? Growing with all of you all, learning, failing, succeeding together. And also now we can actually say Backstage with Millionaires, because we are millionaires, at least in terms of the channel's sub count. Still not a financial millionaire, but it's gonna happen. Just, it might take me another 6 years. So here's to the start of that journey. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. I'm Caleb Friesen, and this has been Backstage with Millionaires. I'll catch you in the next one.